Hey, Jennifer, what's worse than a Cat 5 hurricane barreling towards Florida?
I don't know, maybe finding a three-legged bear drinking all of your White Claw?
Well, that too, but I was thinking it was Ron DeSantis appointing the co-founder of Moms for Liberty to the Commission of Ethics. Hello, and welcome to Moms for Book Liberty,
The podcast where a couple of moms fight back against groups trying to control what our kids can read.
with each episode focusing on a specific book that has found itself on the chopping block of censorship. Hold on a second. You're telling me there was a three-legged bear drinking White Claw in someone's garage?
Yeah, apparently this happened in Lake Mary just recently. I guess he walked in, opened up the little mini fridge.
He hobbled in.
Hobbled in, yeah. Poor thing. And drank his worries away.
And I see from the article, it was a strawberry and a mango White Claw.
Apparently those were his favorite, yeah.
I haven't tried those flavors before.
I'm not a White Claw person at all. Anything with the fizz.
Yeah, it is a lot of sugar. It gives me a headache. That is hilarious. So he's a little tripod of a guy. He hobbled in. I mean, that would be kind of scary. I think, wasn't it like a kid that was there or something? Like the 13-year-old kid saw it?
Oh, I thought they just saw it on video.
No, it was like or at least the article that I pulled up, there was a 13-year-old boy who was watching
he was
TV.
Just home and saw.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's scary.
But he had his dog. His dog named Bruno started barking, and then I think scared the bear away.
Aw.
So this is a PSA for everyone to go get a dog.
Yeah, and in Florida, I mean, they're common, so.
Yeah, black bears, and they're not super aggressive, but like I don't think anyone wants to.
No, run into one. No.
My dog would freak out though.
I think my dog would just try to play with him.
Oh yeah, I bet.
And regret it.
I don't know. Maybe they would play together.
Maybe. But the scarier thing still is Tina Descovich from the Moms for Liberty being appointed to the Ethics Commission. Because that's just terrifying.
Yeah, when I first read that, I was like, no way. And I think, the Florida Senate has to approve this. Yeah. So it hasn't been approved yet?
Correct. So there is, our friends over at Stop Moms for Liberty has a petition that we can sign. So if anyone wants to sign it, they can text sign PQFIBX to 50409 to sign a petition to hopefully keep her off from being appointed. But I'm not really sure what the Commission of Ethics does. I just know she shouldn't be on it.
Yeah, right. I mean,
ethics and her don't.
Ethics and Moms for Liberty don't go hand in hand. And and the reason, I mean, there's lots of reasons, but the most glaring reason, in my opinion, is that they're just frequently quoting Hitler.
Right. Constantly.
And then backtracking and lying about it and, putting his quotes in their newsletters and whatnot. But what the Commission on Ethics does is a few things. One of which is they make recommendations for legislation in an effort to improve Florida's Code of Ethics and its enforcement.
So strike one right there.
Yeah,
she shouldn't be in there.
That's not someone that, I mean, what qualifies you to be on the Code of Ethics? Anyway, I can't answer that question, but I can tell you what disqualifies you. And that's being closely aligned, a co-founder of an extremist group.
Right.
Labeled a hateful extremist group.
Who has ties to Proud Boys.
Yep.
Who just got sentenced to a lot of years.
Oh my God, I saw that. For their
involvement in the January.
Their orchestration.
Yeah.
Is that a word? Orchestration?
Yeah.
Sure, okay. Their orchestration of the January 6th riots.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean, how could someone like that be on the Commission for Ethics?
Right.
So sign this petition. Thank you, Stop Moms for Liberty, for making it. What it is, because I signed it the other night. What it is it's a letter to Paul Renner, I think.
I think it'll send it to whoever your rep is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So an email to Paul, in my case, Paul Renner, saying this is not what we want. So yeah, we're going to share that in our show notes.
And speaking about Nazis and Hitler.
As always,
yeah. We've also just had a bunch of Nazis show up at Altamont Springs and Disney World.
In response to what? The House Bill 269? Was it?
I'm not sure if that's... I know one group had to do with that, but I don't know if... Who knows what
it's hard to keep up with all the crazy, bigotry that's happening these days. But I do know that House Bill 269 is like a rare bipartisan agreement in which both sides of the aisle are agreeing that hate speech has no home in Florida, which I'm like, what? I'm trying to keep up here. Like,
and they're like, no, you can't take my hate speech away.
Right. So I don't know. It sounded like, and I haven't done too much research, but it sounded like Republicans were in support of this bill.
Surprising.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it's just DeSantis trying to, I don't know, get ahead in the polls that he's so far behind in right now. Maybe he's like trying something else out. Maybe he's like, hey, maybe I should be less of an asshole. And then it might work in my favor. I don't know.
One of the flyers were against him, though, right?
I don't know.
But I know another group were holding DeSantis signs. So some are pro. Yeah. I guess that's why they're like different groups.
Yeah. So it's like the pro-Trump Nazis and the pro-DeSantis Nazis. And maybe they just kill each other.
But this is coming. This happened, just this weekend. Right after the weekend before, we had
the terrible tragedy at Dollar General.
Right. Where a gunman came in and murdered
three black people. Yeah. When tragic things like that happen, it's always just so frustrating and it's always so hard to know like what to say.
Yeah.
I don't want to send thoughts and prayers. I want to send action and positive change.
And that's what we keep asking for. But I mean, until we have a change in who's in power. Right. DeSantis showed up at Jacksonville.
Oh my God.
I mean, a lot of people were upset that he was there because they're like, this is your doing. Like, you stroked these flames. Yes. And you empowered these people to do these things. Yeah. The gunman had swastikas all over his gun. AR, whatever it is. Yep. And he came in with the intent to kill black people. He went to an HBU school, historically black university with predominantly black students. And some kids saw him. There's actually video where they're filming him putting on like his vest, and they reported it. So the school resource officer pulled up, and when he saw him, he drove off. Oh. And that's how he ended up at the Dollar General.
Wow. Wait, so he went to a historically black college first?
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And then saw a police officer and then ran away and went to the Dollar General?
Yeah. He ended up going to, I think, another place and then ended up at Dollar General. But I mean,
so he's the fight. He represents the racism that, is in our country. And that's what we're going to talk about today with this book by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi, Stamped for Kids. But that gunman represents the racism that still is stamped into America. And Ron DeSantis is the gasoline of the fire. Like, he's just throwing gasoline onto the fire of hatred and bigotry and racism.
Right. Because, they always stand up there with their empty words. Oh, we don't condone this. But you keep doing things that condone it.
Exactly. Like canceling African American studies.
Correct.
Like, what message does that send? And also, there's so many little things, not even little things that are happening around the state, such as in our own community, at our own local elementary school, where black students were singled out. They were called into an assembly away from peers. It was just black students.
Just black students.
And they were called out in an assembly to raise their test scores or else they would get killed or go to jail.
Right.
And that's not an exaggeration, guys.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what they were told.
And what I'll say, since this did happen so close to home, it happened in our community, the intentions were well-meaning. Yeah, they weren't nefarious, but they caused harm.
Right.
Like, the trauma was there. And so this, all I have to say, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but if that principal who was in charge, and this happened on her watch, if she or her staff members had diversity, equity, and inclusion training, then this wouldn't have happened.
Correct.
And let me ask you a question. Can schools in Florida give DEI training to their employees?
I don't think they can now, right?
No, that's illegal.
That's illegal. Oh my God.
Do you know why? Because of the Stop Woke Act. Schools are hesitant to send their employees to DEI training because it might make someone feel bad. And that breaks the law.
So meanwhile, we'll make a bunch of 4th and 5th grade students feel bad. Because these adults didn't know better.
Which brings us to this book and why books like these are so important to be celebrated and empowered and distributed instead of censored.
Yes.
But this book is censored.
Yeah.
Because it breaks laws.
It talks, about black people and their suffrages and, doesn't paint white people in the greatest light. And that hurts some white people's feelings for some reason. Like, and history is history.
Exactly.
This happened.
So because this book, which is for kids, by the way, has the potential to hurt someone's feelings, it's banned. Yeah. And because, when censorship like this happens, it creates a snowball effect. The snowball effect that we're seeing here in sunny Florida. So this is the kids' version of Stamped, written by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi, with Ibram X. Kendi's research and Jason Reynolds' writing. I think Sonja Cherry-Paul, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Sonja Cherry-Paul, adapted this for kids. Dr. Sonja Cherry-Paul is an educator and author and the co-founder of the Institute for Racial Equity and Literacy.
And the whole name of the book is stamped Racism, Anti-Racism, and You.
Yeah. And it's beautifully written. I mean, I think as an adult, my recommendation is to read the kids' version.
Yeah.
And then maybe if you're still interested, go back and read the adult version. But like, read the kids' version so that you can get an idea of how helpful. It's such a helpful and educational and well-written book. And it doesn't say bad things about our country. And it doesn't say bad things about white people. It's just a very straightforward
look into how racism
is stamped in our country.
Yeah. There's I highlighted here where they talk about the R word. You know, it says, the R word. You may have been told not to talk about race or been made to feel like you can't, as if it's some kind of bad word. But it's not. It shouldn't be. It can't be. So let's all just take a deep breath, inhale, hold it, exhale, and breathe out. Race. See, not so bad.
Exactly. And that's what people like Ron DeSantis are trying to do, is make that word illegal to say.
Right.
Like, you can't talk about it. Like, and I hate it when people are like, I don't see color. If we could just not talk about race. Like, that's so not easy
to say when your skin color isn't something that sticks out to other people.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes.
I'm Hispanic, so, considered a minority. But when I walk out, people don't immediately know, so it doesn't just like scream out to you. I think, now I feel like people just can tell, but it's not super obvious.
Well, let me ask you, since we're talking about this, like, have you or any of your kids experienced any like racial profiling, like being followed when you're in the store, like for shoplifting or treated differently?
Never. And we're lighter skinned Hispanics, so I'll give you an example. My husband was illegal when he first came here. Okay. He was illegal. He worked in construction with a large Mexican group who are browner than he is. They were legal. My husband was not. Oh. When immigration would show up, they would stop all his brown friends.
Oh my God.
And my husband would walk right by them and not get stopped.
Holy shit. That is very interesting.
Yeah. And also when they would show up, they would come to speak to him. Like, he was like running the show there.
Oh my gosh.
Meanwhile, my husband didn't know how to say a lick,
He couldn't even speak English?
Right.
Oh my God.
And like the head, what do you call him? Not the...
The foreman?
The foreman.
Okay, I can't believe I knew that.
was the Mexican guy, with brown skin, shorter.
Spoke English.
Right, like what people consider the stereotypical Mexican. And that's who, he was the boss.
He was in charge, but they talked to your husband because he's lighter skin.
Every time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important insight, and, goes exactly to what we're talking about with, you can't just pretend it's not there.
Right.
Yeah. And what I love about this book is it taught you 3 new words. Well, 2 for me. The words are segregationist, which I knew, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together, like what a segregationist is. And then an assimilationist.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of that?
I had not.
Okay. That makes me feel better. And then the 3rd word is anti-racist.
Which that one I was familiar with.
Yeah. So you want to strive to be anti-racist.
Right.
The other 2, you've got your segregationist. These are historical words.
Yes.
So as opposed to saying racist, you say segregationist.
And that one's kind of self-explanatory, but I like how they describe it, like for kids. Segregationists are haters, like real haters. People who hate you for not being like them. Assimilationists are people who like you only if you act like them.
I loved that. Like, that is, I didn't know that.
Right.
I mean, I knew that people did that, but I didn't know that was the name for it.
Yeah. And then there are anti-racists. They love you because you are you. And that's a perfect way to explain it to children.
Yes. Yeah. And there weren't even like negative words, used. It was just, this is the way that it is. And throughout the book, they have these little like boxes that say, let's pause.
Yeah. I really like that they did that.
Yeah. And they sort of like give further insight and break it down so that there's like, the information is chunked so that it's not like too much at one time.
And it's just a history lesson. It goes back and it discusses,
Yeah, it starts with the enslavement of Africans being a mission from God and like the connection between like Christianity and enslavement.
So if a child was doing a report, this would be a good resource for them to use.
Definitely.
I think the reasons that people have given for not wanting these books in our libraries is what you said. It makes white people feel bad. They don't like...
Which I never understood. As a white person learning about slavery, I never felt guilty because I never did it.
Right.
I was always like, well, sure, my ancestors did terrible things, but like, I'm not responsible, for their actions, but I am responsible for recognizing my privilege, which is hard to do when you're a kid.
Yes.
And the first time I recognized my privilege, I was in college. because I don't think I even knew the word privilege in that context until I was in college. And so by that time, it was harder for me to recognize my privilege. Then I actually was offended by the Black woman who was trying to tell me that I had privilege because I was an idiotic college kid. Yeah. But then, I'm proud to say it didn't take long for it to sink in and for me to be like, oh, okay, like a switch just flipped. And now I understand, my whole life, I've been living with different circumstances and different opportunities.
And a lot of people, I see this a lot. People are like, oh, I'm not privileged. I struggled. I did.
Oh, yeah.
And saying that you're privileged, that you have white privilege, it's not saying that you don't have struggles, that you never had, that you weren't poor, that you weren't abused or anything. It's just saying that you had the privilege of having your skin color not affect you negatively.
Just like with your husband.
Right.
Yeah. And I wouldn't even say that was white privilege, but that was like light skin privilege.
Well, see that we have to check on our like ethnicity and then our race as white or Black. There's no like brown option.
Yeah, right.
And then we put white Hispanic or Black Hispanic.
Right.
Which I hate because I don't consider myself white, even though I know I'm white passing.
Really? So there's no box for just Hispanic?
No.
What?
Yeah.
I kind of remember that. So it's like you pick the box white and then there's a second question that says, are you Hispanic?
Yeah.
Like, why isn't that just, I don't know.
I know, it's, because I've never considered myself white.
Yeah.
Because, I've never been treated.
That's not your identity.
Fully white.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But I do realize I do have some privilege of being light skinned. Yeah,
and there's all different kinds of privileges. Like, when it really clicked for me was when someone said, well, you have white privilege, but you also have like physical body privilege. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, like you don't have crutches. You're not in a wheelchair. Like, you have the privilege of your health, of like being able to like run and walk and swim and jump and all that. And so like, that's a different kind of privilege too. There's socioeconomic privilege. There's
pretty privilege.
Yes. Yeah. And there's straight privilege, there's all kinds of different privileges. And, that's what intersectionality is. Oh, there's male privilege.
Yeah. Oh,
that's the best one. So white man is an example of having, the two best, arguably the two best privileges of being male and white. Yeah. So that the intersectionality of gender and race. So, that's why as women, sure, we struggle. But as Black and Hispanic women, their struggle is different from a white woman's struggle.
Well, they were even saying, I think it was just like International Women's Day recently. Don't quote me on the date, but they were posting
March
about,
8th.
No, it was just recently, like August.
Oh, well, International Women's Day is March 8th.
National then. I don't know, it was something.
Okay.
Something just recently, because I remember I posted about it. And there were a lot of posts about like, when we gained our,
voting rights.
Our voting rights, thank you. And then someone pointed out, well, white women gained voting rights. Right. Black women and minorities did not. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. See, I didn't even think of that. Right. And
that's important. I think, this book kind of touches on that.
Yeah.
Enough for a kid. I would say like anywhere, I would say between like 8 and up.
Yeah. Definitely.
So like you said, it gives a brief history, starting with how white people sort of like, they made excuses for slavery and they tried to make themselves feel better about slavery, like from the very beginning. So this book is a great history lesson. And as a educated person, there are so many people in here that I didn't know about.
Right.
And and I'm so happy to be learning, but it's at the same time, it's like, why didn't I know about these people? So a segregationist named Gomez Ains de Zurara made new ideas about slavery famous and connected slavery to skin color, because before that, slavery did exist. And so that's what I hate when people are trying to make arguments for slavery, or to make arguments like that, it's not just white people. They're like, well, Black people in Africa had slaves.
Always.
I hate that argument. And that doesn't make it any better.
Right. But that justifies them. And like, see, everyone was doing it. And speaking on that, can we bring up how Florida has allowed PragerU curriculum in schools?
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And PragerU is a right-wing extremist conservative curriculum that is, it's borderline segregationist.
Yeah.
And Florida approved it. So now, I mean, I was really contemplating whether or not to be that parent that sends in a letter that says, please, it's my parental right to prevent my child from being exposed to this curriculum. But luckily, all of my kids have really good teachers and aren't going to use this curriculum anyway.
Yeah. I brought it up when I did the...
It's okay. Dallas the pit bull is walking around, so if you can hear the click-clacking of his fingernails, that's...
Sorry.
He's so cute, though.
But yeah, I did bring it up when I went to, like, do the Meet the Teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought
you did?
Yeah. I was
good
like,
for you.
Are you planning on using PragerU?
And what'd they say?
And she was like, no. I was like, okay. All right, good. Good to know.
Hello, Dallas. Dallas is saying hello to me. I know, you're so cute.
That's so cute.
Well, that's really reassuring. But yeah, so this guy, Zurara, he basically made white people think like, oh, you know what? You're saving these black people from Africa. Like they needed to be enslaved in order for this curse to be lifted because they're cursed. You know, the weather in Africa is hot. They should live in colder temperatures. They should learn English and Christianity, and like you're saving their children from a cursed life.
That's just wild.
Which, yeah, I mean, I didn't really know that, but I guess that makes sense. And that's, I always wondered when I was a kid learning about slavery, how so many people could just go along with something so terrible. And I think it was just like the ultimate grift.
Well, yeah, they feel good. Like, oh, we're doing something good for these people. We're helping them.
It's like the ultimate cult with like slavery. Like you were tricked into thinking what you were doing was okay.
It's also like how they tell you like, oh, well, the slaves weren't treated that badly.
Oh my gosh.
They were fed.
Yeah.
And they were given beds to sleep in.
Yeah.
That makes it all okay then.
And if Ron DeSantis was here, he would say that, they benefited from...
Oh, right. They gained skills that would help them be employed when they stop being slaves.
I don't know.
Like,
that man doesn't make a lick of sense. Another thing this book does is it introduces you to a lot of black figures and activists that you just don't learn about in school. And you won't. You think you would because it's 2023. But, now with all the legislation and, the banning of AP African American Studies, like, I don't know when students are going to have an opportunity to learn about these black figures, such as Phyllis Wheatley. She was a black girl poet, and the book says Phyllis Wheatley was #Black Girl Magic before there was ever such a thing as hashtags. She joined words and lines to create verses that rhymed, a poet at a time when it was made basically impossible for a black girl to be one. She became the first African American woman to publish a book. As a young girl, Wheatley had been captured and brought to America. She was purchased by the Wheatley family, who homeschooled her. By 11, she'd written her first poem. By 12, she could read Greek and Latin classics, English literature, and the Bible. By 14, she published her first poem. By 19, she had written so many poems and began gathering them into a collection, a book. Wheatley disrupted the belief that black people weren't intelligent by turning that racist idea upside down. She had intelligence and creativity that white people just could not believe.
And we still see that idea is here. Mm-hmm. We can go back to the whole thing that happened at Bunnell, where,
you're black, so you need to be separated
your test scores are not high enough, and so this means you're not smart, and you're going to end up in a gang or dead or in jail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and that is what the authors of this book argue as assimilationist behavior, which is what Ron DeSantis is.
Right.
To ignore the smarts and arts of African Americans. To say that a black person had to be like Wheatley, who was taught by white people in order to be considered smart. So that's something that I learned as I read this book was like there are people, assimilationists, which are in between anti-racists and segregationists, that say, well, black people should have equal rights as long as they're acting like us.
Right, as long as they're behaving.
Exactly.
It's like really what they're trying to say.
Yeah. And they're ridiculous. And they're not being true to themselves. Right. As long as they have to, why do they have to act like white people?
Right. Yeah. And because acting however they act is seen as misbehaving, but it's not. It's just that's their culture. This is, and it's also, and I see this a lot, we'll see white women take over black culture, and where it was seen as negative when black women were doing it is now seen like hip and trendy, and everyone wants to imitate it.
There's a word for that. Cultural appropriation.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and that doesn't make any sense. So it's like, okay, it's wrong when a black woman does it, but it's cute when a white woman does it. No, it's disgusting.
Or it can still be cute. It was just cute when the black woman did it.
That's true. I guess it's not. What's disgusting is
that it's considered cute now.
Yeah. Another example was an enslaved blacksmith named Gabriel Prosser. Have you heard of him?
I don't recall.
So the only reason, and this is bad, but the only reason I know of Gabriel Prosser is because a white man named Tim Barry wrote a song about him.
Oh, okay.
And it's a white man song, okay? So it's called Gabriel Prosser. It's written by Tim Barry, who's sort of like I don't want to say country. He's more like, he's like an angry country singer.
Okay.
It's like angry folk music, I guess. But you should listen to it. I'll put it in the show notes. And it basically tells the story of Gabriel Prosser, which is that he planned an uprising that would free the enslaved and kill the enslavers in the name of freedom. But these plans were blown by two enslaved people who were more loyal to their enslavers than to the hope of liberation. So this failed revolt left enslavers scared that they would be next and that they might not get tipped off first. So what did they do? You guessed it, the enslavers came up with even more racist ideas to protect white lives. So that kind of goes with like the arguments of like, well, why didn't Black people resist? And they did.
And that reminds me of what we discussed in our last episode in Mouse. Because that happened also at the camp. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So sometimes our own people will be the ones who keep us trapped.
Exactly. And until you're in that situation, you can't sit there and say, "Oh, I would fight back." Like you don't know. Yeah. You don't know what it was like. Another thing that resonated with me was the talk about Lincoln, about how like what comes to mind when you think about Abe Lincoln. He freed the slaves. Right. But it wasn't that simple. Right. He's not an anti-racist.
No. Like, and that's how we grew up thinking. Like, he played this important role, but it was not because he wanted to.
He wanted to win the presidency, so he had to placate both sides, right? So he would stop all of his talk about ending slavery, and then that's how he won. Yeah. And then, it talks about how that doesn't seem like Honest Abe at all. And it's like, I'm sure Moms for Liberty would have a problem with, like, the way, in their minds, the way that they're talking about poor Honest Abe, but really it's history.
That's how, right.
It's what happened.
Just like we used to think Christopher Columbus was like this good guy. Yeah. And now we know better.
He sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Yeah. He did a lot more than that.
Which again, PragerU paints him in a whole different light. PragerU. Like if you have a moment, go look at some of their videos
about Christopher Columbus.
Just about everything. They have a video where they tell girls just to smile more.
Oh, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. Ugh.
Just smile more to be appeasing to guys.
Is there not a petition, but there's a resource about like how, I don't want my kids being exposed to this curriculum. So we'll put that in our show notes if you want to share that. If
an opt-out letter.
Yeah, an opt-out letter. Yeah.
This is Florida, but I've heard recently, I think Iowa also now approved PragerU and Texas.
Oh, you know what else I heard? Arkansas just pulled their AP African American Studies class too. Yeah. And you know who is the education commissioner for Arkansas?
It's the lady.
No. Jacob Oliva.
Oh shit. He used to be our soup.
Yeah, he used to be the superintendent. He used to be a very good personal friend of mine. Like my husband and him were like really good friends. They would go to the local bar and shoot darts together. Like he's a super fun guy. Super nice guy.
That's the problem. A lot of these people are nice.
No, now he's an asshole. Like he's revealed his true colors. Yeah, I could not believe. I mean, this was back in, this was in 2012, 13. But like I can't believe it. Like the things that he's done. Like he's been a part of so many other things.
Well, he was at Moms for Liberty, their summit, and a big supporter of them.
A disgrace for Flagler.
2016, right? That was a year like where everything shifted and people just became really far right and. Like in my sense, 2016, right?
Was that when
Trump ran?
Was Trump the beginning of all of this bullshit?
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Someone even argued that it was when Barack Obama became president.
That too.
Because they're like, a black person being president? No, we got to fix this.
But I still feel like some people were like, oh no, it's not a big deal. But then Trump came and
that's like, when it really started to shit hit the fan.
Yeah, because he started to really put those thoughts out there, like, close the borders. They're all drug dealers and
build a
killers
wall.
And murderers and rapists and
he really brought all of those racists and bigots out of the woodwork. Yeah,
and he stroked those flames of fears and like he just these people think that like they believe everything he says.
Yeah, and it's just sort of an excuse to be the asshole that they are. Yeah. Another historical figure that I'd heard of but didn't know much about is W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. Two powerful black leaders, okay? But Du Bois was an assimilationist. And I think actually at the end of his career and his activism, he became an anti-racist. Yes. But at the beginning, he was an assimilationist. Yeah. Which is interesting.
I thought it was interesting, and it also shows that people can change and grow, which I think was also like a big point that they made in the book. So we can all grow, and I'm sure at one point I was an assimilationist. Right. And now it's like, no, that's wrong. And, you grow and you learn. Exactly. You learn and you grow.
And there's so many black women in here that have been, that are being, lifted up and empowered in this book, such as Ida B. Wells Barnett, who was a journalist who investigated lynchings. She stood up against racist terror when W.E.B. Du Bois would not. Right. Like, that's the hero of this. Like, I want to hear more about her. Right. Like, talk about intersectionality. Like, she's got this very powerful black man who's an assimilationist, and, she's like, you know what? No.
She stood up to him.
Yeah, she is an anti-racist.
And it's curious to see also, a lot of what Moms for Liberty, their little website that tells all the other moms what to put in their book challenges to see what they marked as problematic with the book.
Okay.
So a lot of it is just so dumb.
Yeah.
In 1619, the first ship carrying enslaved African people arrived in the newly colonized America. America welcomed slavery with open arms and used it to build this new country. Mm-hmm. They had a problem with that.
What? Yeah, they have a problem with revealing the truth that, like, this country was built. That's the thing. Maybe they don't believe that this country was built on the exploitation of enslaved Africans.
Yes. And that's...
What else do they have a problem with?
Oh, so much. Let's see, another thing. Some of these new arrivals were missionaries, religious folks who wanted to spread their religion, including Puritan ministries who followed strict religious rules. When they came to America, they set up churches and schools to teach their way of thinking, that they were better than anyone who wasn't a Puritan, and way better than Native American and African people. They taught those ideas in their churches and schools, which, along with Zurara's ideas and others, helped justify slavery for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it happened for so long. Because
it was tied to church and school, which are basically the bacon and eggs of the country, or maybe the bread and cheese. The meat and potatoes, you get the point. I don't know. They had a problem with that whole segment.
Jesus. Because it's calling out the fact that Christians, historically think and still think they're better and their way is better.
Yeah.
And I think in order to be a mom for liberty, you have to be Christian.
Yeah.
You have to be a cis Christian woman.
Yeah. And I think for now, they'll let anybody in, but eventually...
Mm-hmm. I don't know why you would... How could a Jewish woman join Moms for Liberty?
Or a person of color.
Right. I don't know.
I don't get it.
I mean, I've seen that.
I've seen Hispanics. Yeah. I've seen Black. I've seen Middle Eastern.
Mm-hmm.
Just... And I'm like,
I think it's because they're... like, just like how in our community, like, there are some Moms for Liberty who have, when I was running for school board, approached me and they were like... I really like you, and I really like your, like what you're saying, and I think you'd make a good school board member. And I'm like, that's great. Why are you in Moms for Liberty?
Right.
And, essentially that's what I would say. And this one woman in particular was like, well, because I want to save the children from being sex trafficked. This woman has just been, like, tricked into thinking that the only solution to saving these children is to join Moms for Liberty. Yeah. Like, they want to make a difference, but they're so misguided.
Again, good intentions, bad execution.
Exactly. I wonder if Moms for Liberty had a problem with the chapter about, like, racist movies, like Tarzan. Tarzan is old. It was a book in 1912. So, like, there's so many racist books that I didn't know about.
When I was reading that, I didn't realize how racist Tarzan was.
Well, I think the cartoon Tarzan now is different. But,
right. But still, they have, like, was it here? Now I'm getting confused if I saw it here or in another place. Mm-hmm. About the, what do you call the skirts they wear?
With like the butts that make your butts look big? I don't know about that.
Bustiers?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that was after a woman who was enslaved strictly because of her body.
Oh.
Was it this book?
I don't care if it was in this book or not. I need to hear it.
Yeah. Her name is Sarah Bartman, which isn't her actual name. That's like the name that was given to her. Oh. She was enslaved because of her figure. When they saw her, she had a huge butt. When they saw her, they were just, like, so blown away by her figure.
Oh, okay.
Like, the men were going crazy. And, like, they had her, like, in a museum. People can come and see her.
Yeah.
And so the white women in Europe, because she was taken to Europe, they were jealous of, like, the attention that she was getting. Oh. So that is why they started dressing
with those weird butts.
Yes, with, like, those big frilly butts to, kind of
like on Cinderella, the two stepsisters. Yes. Yeah,
like that kind of dress.
Oh my God. Yeah, that just goes to show, like, that's why this book is called Stamped. Racism has been stamped. I mean, that was Europe, but stamped into our country.
Yeah,
and it's there, and we can't ignore it. We have to talk about it.
And that's one of the, like, not first, but signs of women imitating Black women.
Yeah, cultural appropriation. Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't know that. So yeah, the book, it's what's it called? It's linear, right? It's a timeline of events, and it makes its way through segregation and civil rights, and it gets to, we get to the point where we have Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, right? And it's described as, like, they're in this, like, tug of war, right? Because they have, like, different views.
Yes.
Martin Luther King's views were very peaceful. Yeah. Whereas Malcolm X, they were frustrated by Dr. Martin Luther King's faith in nonviolence because Black people were being beaten, jailed, and killed. So many started listening to Malcolm X. So it's just a very, very well-written history. I want to say detailed, too, but not in, like, a boring way. Like, it's like, it's very engaging. it doesn't leave a lot out. I mean, it leaves some things out, obviously, and it's on the appropriate level for kids.
Yes.
Like, my kid could read this and be okay. And it just depends on, like, you got to understand, like, what your kid can handle. For example, have you seen Back to the Future?
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen the one where Biff sexually assaults Lorraine in the car? I forget which
were
one
they
that
at prom or something?
Yeah. Is that the first one?
Oh, God.
I think it's the first
forever,
one.
So I don't remember.
They're at prom and, like, Biff is sexually assaulting. And it's a very short scene, right? So, but you can tell, like, Lorraine is struggling and, whatever. It's a short scene. I didn't think much of it. Okay, right. She's 10 and it's Back to the Future. And so the next day we're out at this restaurant and, like, she's visibly upset. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, well, I don't know. I was just thinking about, something and it made me really sad. And finally I pulled it out of her and she said that, like, she was like, does that happen? That scene in the movie, does that happen in real life? And I was like, do I lie to her? Like, what do I do?
Right.
Like, these are the conversations, and I'm not asking for advice, or anything like that. And I'm not asking to be judged as a parent for anyone who's out there listening and judging, my whether or not you should let your kid watch Back to the Future. But, like, the point is, our kids live in a world that's very scary, and they get to a point and they have to learn about these scary things. Yeah. And books like this do a really good job at teaching them about these things without, the visual,
right?
Like Back to the Future gave to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think she could read this and walk away from it as an informed person,
right?
Who's not going to be triggered by it later,
or, like you said, feel guilty for being white.
Exactly. Yeah, because this book does not make white people feel guilty.
Right. I when I hear that, I'm like, I don't get what would make.
Yeah. If you feel guilty after reading this book, then there are other factors at play.
Or there's something you're hearing at home that resonates with, like, what is being called out in this book.
Exactly.
And then you're like, whoa, I think like that. That's the only thing I can think of. Like, we talked about colorism, right? Like, not seeing color.
Right.
That's what I mean. And how that's the wrong way of thinking. They had an issue with that being highlighted in the book.
Colorism?
Yeah.
Oh my God, of course they did. Because they're not supposed to see color.
Right. They don't like that, they want to go on saying, no, we don't see color, when we all know that you do. So they highlighted that whole part that said, that just talked about seeing color and how it's wrong to think that way, to not realize that there's differences in our skin color and in our culture. So it says, but the kind where people think it's better to act like they don't see differences in skin color. Here's what's wrong with this.
Oh, I love it.
It's ridiculous. Skin color is something we all absolutely see.
Yes.
It's dark skin that people pretend not to see, which reinforces the idea that something is wrong with black skin. If people don't see color, that means they do not see racism.
Yep.
So to pretend not to see color is pretty convenient if you don't actually want to stamp out racism in the first place.
Exactly.
So, but they highlighted this as something wrong with the book. They didn't like that.
Oh my God.
Instead of reading it and going, you know what?
Oh my God, it's so funny.
Point.
I feel like people, like, if you've got these moms that are like, oh, I want to see what, if I should read this book or not, or let my kids read this book, so I'm going to see what Moms for Liberty has to say about it. And they read Moms for Liberty's stupid little book report, and they're like, you know what? After reading this book report, I think I am going to let my kids read this because, like, they're just taking the best quotes from the book and putting them in a book report.
Like, I kept, I went through and highlighted what they had an issue with, and I'm like,
You're just highlighting all the really, like, poignant and insightful things that the book has to offer, which is so many things.
Right. I was like, I'm not seeing the problem here, but okay. And I felt like it said so much about them.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Well, do you realize what this says about you, that you have an issue with these things? Because to me it screams racist.
Exactly. Yeah. Or they're segregationists.
Yeah. I still think they're just racist.
I know. I like the word racist better. But
segregationist. I was thinking you were calling them assimilationist.
No, but still, yes. I like the word racist better than segregationist. But I also like learning new words. So that's good. I like that it goes all the way up to now.
Yeah.
Like, the last chapter is 2020, I think, or something. Like, they talk about 2020, the COVID-19 virus, and the Black Lives Matter protests. And Kamala Harris is the first woman and first Black and Indian American person elected as vice president. Yeah. So, like, they don't just stop, which is what is wrong with so many boomers, right? So many boomers think racism ended after civil rights, right? Like, that's it. Civil Rights Act happened, and now everyone's on an equal playing field. And if you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps, then there's something wrong with you. There's not anything wrong with the system. It's all 100% you, right?
We just need to ignore everything else and move past it.
Yep. I'm superior because I have more money than you, not because I'm white and I have privilege, but because I'm just smarter and better than you.
Right.
Like that's what it is today. But this book continues, to talk about all the things that happened after the civil rights movement to today, including the war on drugs, which I found particularly interesting because I hate Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
But so the war on drugs pushed by President Ronald Reagan, I love that they included that in this book. So the book says, even though white people and black people were selling and using drugs at similar rates, the new drug laws targeted black people. For example, one law made it a more serious crime to be caught with small amounts of the types of drugs more often found in poor black neighborhoods than with larger amounts of the types of drugs more often found in rich white neighborhoods. So we're talking like cocaine versus marijuana.
Yes.
The result of this new policy was that millions of black Americans were sent to jail. It was a war on black people, and it devastated black communities.
And it still happens.
Yeah.
Because we still see, best way I could put it is I have adult kids, teenagers. And so they tell me what happens in our own town, right? I can confidently tell you that a good majority of our kids in this town are using drugs.
Oh, yeah.
Hard drugs.
I've heard some
drugs.
really serious stories.
White kids. I'm talking about the white community. A lot of hard drugs. And my daughter, at first, poor thing, she's like, I didn't realize they were all, using these hard drugs. She thought they all just smoked marijuana. She didn't know they were all on coke and other things.
Yeah.
And she's like, I had no clue. But now that I know, like, what the signs are, everyone uses, Mom.
Yeah. Oh.
Everyone.
Jesus. Not her, though.
No. Knock on wood. Hold on. I'm going to run out and get a dry test. From what she tells me, no.
Yeah.
From what I know.
If she's talking to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
which is something that we always say in this podcast. Talk to your kids.
Yeah. And I don't see signs of it. And, like, it's constantly, like, a thing. Like, I'm like, please, like, don't do that. Because her father used to, have issues with that. So I'm like, there's addiction in your family.
Yeah.
You can't go down that road.
A great example of talking to your kids.
And so she's, obviously promises, but I know we're kids, and I was a curious kid once, I tried things. So it's something we always talk about. And, but yeah, a lot of kids here use. A lot of kids here get pulled over and don't get arrested.
They don't get their car searched.
Right. Or they don't, exactly.
That's
they don't
the
get
difference.
Their car searched.
Yeah.
But a black teenager will get pulled over,
bet your ass their car is getting searched from top to bottom.
And they will go to jail.
And that's systemic racism.
And then you look on the news and like, oh, well, yeah, look at all these black kids that are using drugs. But you don't see that happening to white kids because they don't get searched.
I remember being so frustrated as a teenager when I would get into fight. I don't know how. I mean, I would just get into fights with people about racism all the time. I just like to argue. And so they would come up with these counter arguments like, well, why are there more black people in jail? Why are there more black people, that abuse drugs? And I didn't have the data or the tools or this book to help me, fight back in that argument. So I would just leave feeling really frustrated and defeated. Yeah. Which is, it just goes to show the importance of a book like this. Yeah. Like, can you imagine if this was required reading in history class?
Oh, not here in Florida.
I know.
That's not going to happen, unfortunately.
But if we just listened, to the experts that, like Ibram X. Kendi and Jason Reynolds and all the research that they've done. And we, gave this knowledge to our kids in our schools. Imagine what our society would look like in 10 years.
Yeah. And speaking on that, even the law you were just talking about that Reagan put in place, that seemed like a good thing. That sounds good.
The war on drugs.
The war on drugs.
Yeah.
We're going to put an end to it. Sounds good. But the reality is we're letting the white people get away with the drug use. And we're still targeting black people.
And don't even get me started because we're running out of time, but don't even get me started on all the kids, the black kids that are dying at the hands of, guns, not just from police officers, but, take Trayvon Martin, for example. Yeah. That guy, I don't know if he was retired police or something, but he was just took it upon his fucking self in the neighborhood.
He was like the neighborhood
watch guy. Yeah. Yeah.
Overzealous, wannabe cop.
And here we have Trayvon Martin with fucking gummy bears in his hoodie, Skittles, because he was watching basketball, and just breaks my heart. But this book does a really good job at giving power to those names. Yeah. It says their names: Aiyana Jones, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown. Black children's lives ended at the hands of police officers. And then black women like Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tometi. They started not only a hashtag of Black Lives Matter, they started a movement, which everyone listening has heard of Black Lives Matter, but did you know it was started by 3 Black women?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Alicia Garza, Patrice Coolers, and Opal Tometi. Black Lives Matter was a direct response to brutality. It was a rallying cry, a declaration of love from the minds and hearts of 3 Black women, 2 of whom are queer. It was an announcement to all, in order to be truly anti-racist, we must oppose all injustices, such as sexism, homophobia, colorism, and classism, that work alongside racism to harm so many Black lives.
Yeah. And a lot of people, the all lives matter people, right?
Oh, I hate the all lives matter people.
It kind of goes back to the same thing of like, oh, we don't see color. Oh, why are Black lives matter more important than ours? That's not what they're saying.
I'll tell you why. The reason why all lives matter is problematic is because if your house is burning and the fire department comes and the fire department's, mentality is, well, all houses matter. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this house down the street is not on fire before tending to your house, right? So it's like, do you want the fire department to have the mentality of all houses matter or just the ones that are burning down right now?
Right.
And that resonated with me because, not to say that like Black people are on fire, but like,
they're dealing with the crisis.
Yes.
They're the ones that are being targeted negatively right now.
Yeah. So, I really like that analogy.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy.
And it can be applied to the gay community as well.
Yes.
So all sexual orientation matters, sure, but like the straight people aren't being targeted.
Exactly.
So, yeah. But I don't know. I think that was a great book, and I think at the end they have like the timeline starting from the very beginning, which I liked, and it's a very detailed timeline.
They also have like the definitions of all the words, glossary. And I swear I read books.
That thing where they have, is it a dictionary?
Like half the time I'm like, I don't know what I'm saying.
And they have further reading, illustrated books for younger kids. So if you have like a 6 or 7-year-old that you want to educate about these things, there's Anti-Racist Baby. That's actually for babies, but I had that one when my kids were little. It's a good one. And chapter books. Oh, one of them is Ghost Boys, which my daughter read, and Brown Girl Dreaming. Those are 2 good books for young adults. So, and Miles Morales, Spider-Man, written by Jason Reynolds.
So yeah, it's a good resource to have, a good resource for kids to read. I would say, and then with additional resources at the end. As
an adult, like I'm going to read Stamped, the adult version, but like I'm really happy I read Stamped, the kids version first. It's like the primer, you know? It helps. So before we leave today, we know it's been a long time since we released an episode. We took a little bit of a break because, lives are busy.
Summer, kids home.
Yeah. So, but our goal is to do like 2 episodes a month with the intention of maybe if we can get our shit together once a week.
3 or 4.
Yeah. I would love to do once a week. And so that, our listeners can count on like every Monday, a new episode. But our next episode, are we going to do My Shadow is Purple?
I would love that one, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do a junior edition where we aren't as snarky and negative and where I try not to curse for My Shadow is Purple. But we rebranded.
Yes.
We changed our name, not because, basically because it was boring.
It was boring, and personally, I hated that people were confusing us with Moms for Liberty.
We didn't really
not that they thought, because I know we put out the whole thing when one of the members made us think about it. I don't care about that. It was fun in the beginning until it stopped being fun.
Yeah. It was fun when like Moms for Liberty like supporters were listening to the podcast and they'd be like, this is a lie.
Yeah, that was funny. We loved that. Yeah. And that was great.
When we went to the Pride Festival, and I could just see the look on people's faces when they came within like eye shot.
Yes.
Is that eye shot? Is that what you say? No, that's earshot.
Within view.
Thank you. When they came within view of our tent, I could see the looks on their faces. They were like, what the fuck is Moms for Liberty doing here? And I would yell, we're not Moms for Liberty. We're Moms for Book Liberty. Wait, what is that our name?
Yeah.
Books Liberty? Okay.
But
the logo's just boring, too.
Yeah, it's a little boring. Yeah. And it was fun to poke the bear a little bit in the beginning, but I think this is more us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now that, we actually have a lot of listeners, and they understand that one of our main goals here is to reveal the true intent of Moms for Liberty, and we're going to keep doing that.
Yes. Yeah, the idea is still to discuss books that are being challenged and banned, and just calling out Moms for Liberty and their bullshit and other groups like them, because there's like unfortunately more of those groups.
Bigots.
Yeah.
And to get you to read more.
Yes.
And to have those conversations with kids, because really this is impacting them in their future and their education. And so we're talking to a few of our friends, and we decided that we just wanted a new look and I love our logo.
Yes,
it's very colorful.
It pops.
Yes, and we're going to reveal it with this new episode. So the name of our new podcast is Moms into Literary Freedom.
Yes.
And the logo is beautiful and colorful, and we're excited to reveal it with you guys. And we're excited.
Be on the lookout for our new logo. It's same us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
a new look.
Nothing. You still get Jennifer and Courtney, rambling on about shit that pisses them off.
Yes, that's all. And hopefully getting you to read a book.
Yeah, we're trying to get you to read the books. You definitely need to read Stamped, for sure. And I don't know, until next time.
Don't ban books.
Ban bigots. Bye.
This episode has been engineered and mixed by your hosts, Jennifer Mendoza and Courtney Green.
Be sure to follow our show on Twitter at Moms for Book Lib and Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Moms for Book Liberty with the number 4.
And leave us a review on Amazon Music or Apple Podcasts, or you can rate us wherever you listen to podcasts.